Yeah, thank you so much, Naledi. You know, it was quite interesting when he started his testimony around the assault that he suffered at the hands of who he says were plainclothes police officers. And just to put in context how he ended up becoming on the suspect list. Now, you'll recall that there's about 2 case dockets for this particular Meyiwa case. The initial case that was the case docket that was originally done in 2014, and a recent case docket that was drafted in 2019. Now, that case docket of 2019, 379, was a docket that listed all the occupants of the house, including one neighbor, as being the suspects that had knowledge, critical or material knowledge of what exactly had happened with the shooting inside the house. It said that there was no proof that there had been any suspects or intruders that had come into the house, and it said one of the people that were in the house at the time, including the neighbor who was alleged to have covered up or cleared up parts of the crime scene, were responsible. And you recall, Naledi, the people that were in the house at the time had been the witness that is testifying now, Mthokozisi Thwala, as well as Senzo Meyiwa, as well as Senzo Meyiwa's friend who had come from Durban, whose name was Tumelo Madlala, as well as Kelly Kumalo, her sister Zandi, as well as their mother and the 2 small children. And those are the people that were in the house, and this is what the case docket of 2019 was saying are the people that were responsible. And as a result of that, he says that in late 2019, 2 police officers came to his house while he was in Umlazi and said he needs to go and do an identity kit. They led him up to Johannesburg, specifically in Pretoria, under false pretenses, saying that what they wanted was for him to do an identity kit, but it didn't turn out that way. He says once he got there, he started getting accused, and that's where the torture, the beating, and the prolonged interrogation took place. And he became quite emotional, Naledi, at certain points in his testimony, talking about how both his hands were tied, his feet were tied, and his hands and his feet were tied to each other, and that his genitals were also placed on a mat to further humiliate him and dehumanize him. He really broke down, and there was a point where the court asked him if he wanted a slight break, and we adjourned for about 10 minutes to give him a chance to compose himself. And we came back, you could see he was really still emotional, and he even said at a point in his testimony that the incident that happened in 2019 really did not sit well with him. He did say that the 2 police officers, the 2 plainclothes police officers that interrogated him, are police officers that he did not know. He said after about a 3 to 4 hour prolonged interrogation, then let him loose, and still further accused him of not wanting to cooperate with the investigation, and still further accused him of knowing key information of what had happened in the day, or knowing who it was that had shot Senzo Meyiwa, and not pointing the finger towards the intruders that Mthokozisi had said had come into the house. And he said once that interrogation had concluded 3-4 hours later, they then took him to his house here in Johannesburg, in Katlehong, and he told his family what had happened, and he describes that he had bruises on his shin, he had blood coming out of different parts of his body, and he was limping, he was struggling to walk, and he was absolutely petrified of going with the police anywhere else, because at that point the trust had been broken between him and the police. And he says once he got there, his family also refused to let him go any further with the police, but the police insisted that they cannot drop him off in Katlehong, they need to take him back to Umlazi. But the family was saying that they don't feel comfortable and they don't feel safe with him being driven by the police, the very people he says had interrogated him for all these hours and tortured him and beaten him to such an extent that he just felt that it just was not a safe environment, and the family felt that it was not a safe environment for him to be taken back to Umlazi by the police. Now, lady, now you'll hear that there's some police sirens in the background. We are quite close to the police station, the prison. So it is one of those things that do happen, that the police do come here with sirens that are quite loud. So what we are expecting, though, for the rest of this day today, Naledi, is for Mthokozisi Thwala to continue with his testimony. And beyond continuing with his testimony, we are anticipating that by the afternoon, the cross-examination will begin. And the cross-examination is going to be where the true critical parts come in, because that's when the lawyers for the 5 accused will start poking holes in his testimony. We do know that we've picked up about 2 discrepancies in his testimony versus the testimony of Tumelo Madlala, where Tumelo initially had said that the second intruder was the one that tussled with Senzo Meyiwa, whereas Mthokozisi was saying in his testimony over the past couple of days that Senzo Meyiwa had been tussling with the first intruder. So obviously aspects around that, that's a critical point to find out exactly who it was that tussled with Senzo Meyiwa, because the person that tussled with Senzo Meyiwa, based on their version of what had happened, would be the true suspect or the true perpetrator of the shooting. Whether it was an accident or it was intentional, that would really be the person that literally had the smoking gun. Naledi.